Okay, sorry, I showed the wrong page. Okay, let's do this. It's we investigating why so many Amazon workers are dying. 40 minutes. Okay, we'll be like here a lot, but
Since
okay.
2018, countless Amazon workers have been killed on the job.
Sorry. But the amount of work to do this job here, Jesus Christ. You did 3D modeling just for this video.
Countless, not just because the death toll is so high, but because there is evidence to suggest that many incidents have been covered up and withheld from the public eye. 2018
doesn't
was
get
also
me
the
in
same
trouble.
year Amazon brought one-day shipping to more than 10,000 cities. And since then, Amazon has been put on the Dirty Dozen list as one of the most dangerous employers in the entire United States. The company has
United States. Okay, where is the other ones? What are the other ones? Well, but is it in the world? You know, but this is so bad. What is the list? I want to know what are the most dangerous places.
repeatedly ignored safety standards and has used questionable policies to create a dystopian workplace that controls its employees through panic and anxiety, often forcing them to work through injuries, extreme heat, and even a tornado, all so that customers can get their air fryers in one day. But what makes working at Amazon so deadly? Well, let's examine the deaths that
Bro, but why is this legal? This is not
have
right,
been reported
bro.
and see what's going on. Like in 2013, when Ronald Smith was fulfilling
Oh.
Amazon packages in a distribution warehouse in New Jersey and a conveyor belt jammed. According to a lawsuit from the family, Amazon demanded Herculean production. So, to avoid a slowdown and get the conveyor going again, Ronald tried to clear it. But his arm got caught, and what exactly happened next is a
No,
bit
he suffered
unclear,
the-
but the complaint from
Jesus
his family
Christ.
states that first he was pulled through a gap less than 6 inches wide. Then he fell 15 to 18 feet, hitting the concrete with his head. He was pronounced dead at the hospital due to multiple blunt force impact injuries. Then there's a worker who died at the end of November 2021. He
Jesus.
approached HR and said, "I'm not feeling so well. Can I please go home?" But he was denied because he had no time off that he could take. This is referred to as unpaid time off, or
Bro, this is so bad. Okay, there's gonna be an ad playing in a bit. I'm so sorry, but let me just. This is the world's most powerful company. Why don't they make like for example, they could make a really good place to work, right? Or I'm being just, I don't know, unrealistic. I just think everyone that has power can make the world better. I'm like, I told here all the time, if I'm rich, I'm going I'm going to make everyone happy. You know? This is not cool. And probably, how much do you think they are really bad paid? You can't call 911? Oh my god! The place is available to work, don't tell me, Jesus Christ. Bro, that's so low, Jesus. Bro, the army treats people better than Amazon. Okay, these guys sue them. Bro, you know, I've heard about that Amazon is going to make everyone go bye-bye and get robots. I don't think robots can work that hard. They need maintenance. You know, they can be machines, but they're like beings. You know, we need sleep, they need, I don't know, software update. I don't know. He's really worrying me. It could be illegal, but why it isn't? We need to protect everyone. I guess. But okay, let's start in a bit. The ads stopped.
UTO, which builds up the more you work. It's what employees must use if they want to go home early, take a day off for any reason, or if they're late for their shift. But if they arrive just 5 minutes after their start time, it's recorded as an entire hour of UTO lost, as it's measured by the hour. And so this worker, who was feeling too unwell to work, he had no UTO left that he could take, so it was either go back to work or be fired.
Stop taking meeting notes.
Bro,
and let
now,
ClickUp AI note
you know
taker
what?
do it for
Yeah,
you.
it could
allows
be.
you to focus on your meetings.
Girl,
Unfortunately-
boy, they damn people, everyone. If the company you work is this bad, and you're working there, and they say you're fired if you need to, I don't know, take a rest, but you genuinely have to. And it's pretty really bad, bro. It's better to get fired. I know that the world is really bad without a job nowadays. Even with a job, it's really hard. Okay, but this is getting crazy. You guys shouldn't get to work on these conditions. What is this?
He was later found dead from a heart attack in a
Bro, no. Please, everyone, put your health first, okay? Don't do this. Okay, don't do this. I was gonna really destroy my health with work too, okay? And my health is already bad. Don't do this, please. You have only one life. And if you destroy your health, your life is gonna be full of suffering.
delivery truck trailer. To add insult to death, those who were upset by witnessing the death of their friend were told to go back to work rather than being allowed to go home or take even a moment's break to mourn.
What?
A common theme, as you'll see. Then there's the 61-year-old man who on December 27, 2022, collapsed from a heart attack on an Amazon warehouse floor. According to witnesses, cardboard bins were used to cordon off the area so people wouldn't be able to see the dead body, and the warehouse went
No
on
way! No way! But they left the body there? No, this is so...
business as usual, like nothing had happened. And it seems as though this isn't an isolated occurrence. It's a disturbing trend. In March of 2019, a 60-year-old picker, Joe Bowman, went into cardiac
no.
arrest. On the 911 call, a manager could be heard telling another worker to get back to work. Redditors claim this is a regular occurrence. On the Amazon
way.
Fulfillment Center subreddit, a death was posted, and people chimed in with their own experiences. Someone died at my fulfillment center and work didn't stop. They just moved people from the area. Someone died at mine and they just put a slippery floor sign next to the body.
No way.
Yep, that's what they did at my location too.
Bro, no, don't work on these
And
places.
further in
Jesus
those
Christ.
comments, one employee talked about yet another death at their center. From what I gathered, it was a member of the maintenance team, and he was found in the bathroom on the 3rd floor. I can't fathom how management just sent everybody back to work without so much as making a statement or addressing what was going on. But the problem isn't just how Amazon responds
That's a lot
to
of
deaths on the
people
job.
already.
It's the company policies that may be causing these deaths in the first place. In the same warehouse of that previous 911 call, another death occurred a few months later in September
Jesus.
of 2019 when 48-year-old Billy Foister checked into the warehouse's medical clinic, AmCare. These facilities are staffed by on-site medical representatives, or OMRs, who are supposed to be trained EMTs. Billy came
Okay.
to them complaining of headaches and chest pains. Chest pains are never something that should be ignored, by the way, and you should seek medical help right away. AmCare checked his
Jesus.
blood pressure, said he was dehydrated, gave him beverages to drink, and sent him back to work. Unfortunately, a
Bro,
week
no.
later while on the job, he suffered a heart attack, and it took a whole 20 minutes until someone found him. They tried to administer CPR, but by the time he got to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. And this is unfortunately all too common. Medical concerns being brought to AmCare don't always end with death, but the seriousness of the problems are often ignored. It's why a lot of people complain.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you something. This is really bad if it's on Amazon, like Jesus Christ, they should do better. But the part of ignoring like these serious issues is kind of recurrent here. Like, for example, one of my people of my family actually warned the doctor of signs of, a stroke. and the doctor ignored her and gave her a medication that would cause her a stroke. Later, like 1 month or something, she got a stroke. And she survived, actually. And Jesus Christ, yeah, in general, nowadays, sometimes doctors and stuff don't really care. But yeah, but that's another stuff. But Amazon should do better, actually.
About Amcare. Like on Reddit, the main complaint seems to be that Amcare is quick to give employees a clean bill of health even if their injury or symptoms are severe. Like one employee who allegedly received a foot injury while on the job. They iced it and told me it was a sprain and sent me back to work.
What is a
I was
sprain?
in so much pain, but they literally were like, sprains hurt, you'll be fine. So I went back upstairs and finished my 12-hour shift. I even asked them if I could go home because it hurt too bad. And they said I could, but that I'd have to use my own UPT/PTO. They stayed home the next 2 days because of the pain and struggled to get any workers' compensation. In the end, after finally seeing a doctor, they were told they had broken their foot. They really don't care about us at all.
Of course not.
Of course, that's Reddit, so it's hard to validate. But OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has investigated Amcare several times, and their findings only reinforce this worrying trend. At one warehouse, they issued a warning stating that Amazon's Amcare returned injured workers to their regular jobs, which resulted in health outcomes such as worsening of the injury, exacerbation of pain, and limited recovery from work-related injury/illness.
TC exists, Department of Labor. Okay, they should do something then, right?
Then there's also Bobby Gosviner, an Amazon warehouse employee who spoke with CNBC for an expose on Amazon's injury rates. He described how one day the conveyor belt broke and led to a pileup of boxes that looked like a tornado had gone through the warehouse. That took more than 4 hours to clear. Because of the twisting and bending at the rapid pace that was expected of him, he got a pain in his back. When he told his manager, the manager tried to downplay it, saying it would take a lot of paperwork. His manager asked if he could take an Advil, put ice on it, and get back to work, which he did. But by the end of the day, he couldn't move his right arm, and he woke up with excruciating pain the next day. Turns out, Bobby had a herniated disc. He had to wear a brace and have a surgery to get a plate and 4 screws surgically inserted into his neck.
I've been exposed.
Bro, do you know how much that must cost in money? Like, the guy probably had to pay for the surgery.
Enjoyed it so much.
He was awarded.
Bro, imagine, here in Portugal is free this stuff, this care, but, you know, the guy got even worse injured. The company said no law, keep working. And then the guy had to pay for this. Literally, the company should pay for this, but okay.
Permanent partial disability, where he got money and benefits through workers' compensation. But injuries seem all too common at Amazon.
I got compensation,
centers,
thank you.
which reveal a deeper problem within the company's exploitative management tactics.
Walmart!
In 2021, the
You're telling me Walmart is dangerous too?
Strategic Organizing Center, a coalition of labor unions, released a report about Amazon's epidemic of workplace injuries. They found that compared to Walmart warehouses, a company equal to them in size and scope, Amazon had more than twice the amount of injuries each year between 2017 and 2020. And not much has changed since 2020. Senator Bernie Sanders launched an investigation in 2023 and
wasn't this a guy a meme? I remember it being a meme some years ago.
Found that Amazon's injuries were 30% more than the industry average. And in the Strategic Organizing Center's report from 2024, when they conducted a survey of Amazon workers, 37% of them claimed management pressured them to work before they felt ready to do so. In fact, when compared to injured workers at other warehouses, injured Amazon workers take 52% less time off to heal. But there's a deeper problem with Amcare and Amazon policies as a whole. It's actually stated right on internal documents that employees are not allowed to call 911. And as you can imagine, this policy has deadly consequences. On January 18th, 2013, Jeff Lockhart Jr. was a temporary worker for the Chester, Virginia Amazon Fulfillment Center who had collapsed during his night shift. While other temporary workers were let go after the holiday peak season in January, he was kept on, giving him hope for permanency, something he wanted. Amazon's internal report marked him as a consistently high performer. He was known for moving quickly up and down the aisles of the 18 football field-sized warehouses to pick all the items as fast as he could. Because of his speed and his size, at 6'3" and 300 pounds, he earned the nickname Tornado. Before he got the job in November, he had been jobless for a few months and desperately needed a way to support his family of 3 children. 2 of these children were his wife's from a previous relationship, yet he adopted them and treated them the same as the one child they shared together. Because of the long hours he had been putting in, he and his family were going to meet after a shift for breakfast.
Is this a Shrek doll? One thing. I forgot what I was going to say, sorry.
At Shoney's, a classic American restaurant. Unfortunately, he would never make it to that breakfast date. At around 2:30 a.m., he was found unconscious by an employee on the 3rd floor in aisle A215 under shelves of heating pads and Tupperware. The employee didn't call 911. This is the procedure according to Amazon brochures. They state, in the event of a medical emergency, contact security with "Do not call 911," all in red, underlined, and with an exclamation point. It goes on to state that security and/or AmCare will provide emergency response.
What happens if I call? If I work there? They would fire me? At least I saved a life, I guess. I don't know. Better than nothing, saving a life.
Which goes against standard CPR protocol. One of the first steps before starting CPR is to call 911. Dr. Mikhail Varshavsky, better known as Dr. Mike on YouTube, states, "You're not actually saving someone's life by doing CPR. You're buying them time. So delaying the ambulance by even a second is extremely dangerous." But when AmCare is faced with an emergency, they may not be able to handle it. Many of them are EMTs. However, unlike the brochure might imply, they're limited in what they can do, as their hands are tied. As one AmCare worker explained in the Amazon FC subreddit, by law, because we lack a medical director, we are not allowed to operate at our license level, EMT or higher, and are instead restricted to first aid only. Another AmCare worker explained that one of the tricky parts is us not having great diagnostic tools. Even our blood pressure cuffs are the cheap automatic ones, and I'm not even sure if the pressure dial is accurate. I don't even have access to bag valve masks or Narcan. A UK Amazon employee.
I want to tell something. I never bought something from Amazon, I guess. Because it's quite expensive here. And yeah, we don't do much. I just order from stores like or I'll go to the physical store, or I go to a place that I order. And they will order from that small business and stuff. I will get it.
Employee named Mary spoke.
I only bought on eBay.
To the Tribune about how the real reason for all this is that it may be part of a cover-up. She says that they're discouraged to call 999, the equivalent of 911 in the United States, explaining they don't really want ambulances to come on site. Sometimes they will offer to pay for the taxi. They started doing it after there was something in the papers about Amazon calling too many ambulances at their site, likely referring to when The Guardian reported in 2018 that during the span of 3 years, UK Amazon warehouses called 600 ambulances. Mary also explained how a colleague of hers had signs of a stroke. She called her doctor, who said she would need to go to the hospital. The colleague told AmCare, and they said they wouldn't call an ambulance, and she would have to go on her own, all to keep their ambulance numbers down. So when our temporary worker, Jeff, was found unconscious at 2:30 a.m., it took a whole 9 minutes for them to finally decide to call 911. It took paramedics a total of 20 minutes from the moment that Jeff collapsed for them to reach him. Even though AmCare provided CPR and used the defibrillator, unfortunately, Jeff didn't make it and passed away from an irregular heartbeat, according to the medical record. Meanwhile, his wife and children had been left with grief and no means to support themselves financially. Jeff's father went to Amazon and asked the managers what the company would do for their son's family.
Nothing, of course. Bro, this is so sad, no way.
And their response was, "We'll see what we can do." But it seems as though nothing was ever done for them, except for some cash his fellow employees were able to gather together for the family. And it's not the only death potentially caused by the 911 policy. In 2018, 61-year-old Mike Galask worked at a Murfreesboro, Tennessee fulfillment center. First, when he was found, security was informed as per the policy, but they struggled to find a communication device, as cell phones weren't allowed. One security guard finally called 911,
cell phones aren't allowed?
For some reason, put 911 on hold to never return. Then, afterward, someone else called. According to ambulance records, it took 5 minutes for them to call 911.
Why?
Unfortunately, he
Oh,
died
yeah.
of cardiac arrest.
Bro.
Now, by this point,
If people are getting so many cardiac arrest stuff in that work, that's something bad, bro. The people should get some rest.
in our investigation, perhaps you've been noticing a pattern that many of these deaths are related to heart conditions.
Yeah.
Well, that may be because work-related stress is known to exacerbate or even cause cardiovascular diseases and irregular heartbeats. According to the CDC, work is linked to about 10 to 20% of all cardiovascular disease deaths. They attribute it to 10 work-related factors, including long work hours, high performance demand, and low job control. Amazon warns new employees that the job will be physical, but what they don't warn them about is the stress. Due to multiple dystopian management techniques, Amazon has purposely created one of the most stressful workplaces out there. To start with, Amazon...
Yeah, one day I was gonna work in a place, they were warning that it's gonna be really physical. And that work, first I had to get a train, practice for some months with someone, and I had to get classes for a day in some specific place. It's kind of weird, I know. But after that, I would work full time and then only partial time. They're always partial time. And then when I was on the interview, they were talking about you have to lift yourself alone with no machine 20 kilos of fish. Some people know I have really bad health conditions. It got worse. And it even causes me to have problems walking and stuff. And I have back problems and surgeries and those things you put in your body. And I said, yeah, I can do that. But they rejected me in the end of the day because I didn't have a car. But the people actually, how can I tell you? They have like this system of days you can have out and in. And there's something called here, in June and December, people receive double, okay? And they don't want to do that, so they pay them like a little thing to compensate over the year. And the problem is that it looks like they pay you a really big money, but in the end it's the same money everyone gets. And I didn't go work there. I was really mad because I needed to get cash, I didn't get it. And people still complain about the stress, and it's like you are, in a way, forced to smile and be well all the time and be fast. You have to be fast enough on everything to get a promotion, okay? It's kind of hard. It's kind of like this, but geez, this is worse.
Amazon uses a new style of invasive surveillance in order to optimize their workforce. They have installed a vast camera system in their warehouses, which use AI to track their employees' movements. Each worker is then issued an item scanner. From the scanners, they are given a task such as retrieving an item. When they pick the item, they scan it, and the scanner then records the time between scans. Once a task is done, you're immediately given a new task, and an anxiety-inducing countdown timer starts ticking down. This is all according to an expected rate. You see, management sets a rate for you, which can change day to day, even hour to hour, without warning. If you're picking boxes from the shelves, it may be as high as 80 boxes per hour. That's 45 seconds per box. If the countdown timer hits 0 before you're able to scan another box, the scanner gives you a warning that you've taken too much time off task, or TOT, and it will alert management. At one warehouse,
I did what I could. Jesus Christ.
A shift that they could be off task, and if they racked up too much TOT, they could be fired. A policy which has put many employees in deadly situations. Even bathroom breaks count towards your TOT. This means you're at a disadvantage if you need to go to the bathroom often, or if you're far from a bathroom in the massive warehouse. Author James Bloodworth investigated workplaces for his book, Hired 6 Months Undercover in Low-Wage Britain. He worked at an Amazon fulfillment warehouse and discovered on a shelf tucked away was a bottle full of urine. He realized that the fear of getting fired led some workers to urinate in bottles in the name of efficiency. Even if it's
Jesus
an action that
Christ.
isn't directly condoned by Amazon, they've created the environment that leads to this mentality. Some will even purposely not intake
Isn't it the biohazards having like urine in the warehouse? Bro, that's even worse. But okay.
fluids while on the job to avoid TOT, leading to dehydration. If you hydrate, eventually you've got to use the bathroom, said Stephen Hicks, an employee for Amazon. He explained how he didn't like using the bathroom outside official breaks to not hurt his rate. It makes me afraid, mentally and physically exhausted, said Hibek Mohammed, a stower from a Minneapolis Amazon warehouse. Workers have described the environments as Lord of the Flies-esque, where the weakest are picked off one by one. With a few mistakes, you could be terminated suddenly, with about 1 in 10 Amazon workers will get fired within the span of a year. If the Amazon automated system determines your productivity is low, it can even let you go without any human input. Amazon worker Danielle Olayiwola explained, "You're being exploited because they know you're a hard worker, and then once you break down, they're like, oh, well, we got a good 6 to 9 months out of you. You're out of here, and you're literally just used."
There's
This
no
creates a
compensation
constant
for
low-grade
that.
panic that puts a physical and mental strain on workers every hour of the day, even during off hours. Hibek Mohammed added, "I feel, and a lot of workers they feel, even when they're sleeping, that they're docking to try and hit their rate. Because they're worried about next week what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I finished this week. Next week if I hit the rate, if the rate will change. And managers are watching you and coming to you all the time. You feel like someone is watching you while you're sleeping." Emily Gwendelsberger, author of On the Clock, What Low-Wage Work Did to Me and How It Drives America Insane, also went undercover at Amazon. She explained, "It took my body 2 weeks to adjust to the agony of walking 15 miles a day and doing hundreds of squats. But as the physical stress got more manageable, the mental stress of being held to the productivity standards of a robot became an even bigger problem. You can't slow..."
Bro, okay. It's a low-wage job. You work too much and you die. What's better? Wait for a job that's good and will be with you for the rest of your life, or work a job for like some 6 months and then you die and then life is over. Don't work on these places, please.
Slow down if you're tired or hurting. It's why some employees have shared stories about how they've broken down crying at work. Speed is the priority, so they can get packages out for 1 or 2 day shipping. This leads to stress and mistakes, which leads to injuries and death. And this problem extends out to their drivers as well, who use a navigation software called Dora or Rabbit. It both recommends and monitors routes for drivers, tracking their every turn. The software gives them a 30-minute lunch and 2 15-minute breaks, and they're told that 999 of 1,000 packages must be delivered on time or face termination. When you're driving a delivery van, barreling down the road, the pressure to perform means there are a lot of mistakes and potential deaths involved. Like in August of 2020.
Don't worry working on places like this. Bro, don't work on places like this. I know life is so hard, but does it compensate in the end working in here? No. In general, works jobs that promise stuff and they're just really bad.
2022, a 2-year-old girl was playing outside in a parking lot when she was fatally hit by an Amazon driver trying to get their packages out on time. She was declared dead on the scene. It left the family grieving, unable to sleep at night, saying, "There are no words to describe the amount of pain." They wanted to sue Amazon, but they ran into an issue of liability. While they were an Amazon driver, they didn't technically work for Amazon. That's because as a means to extend Amazon's network and to keep their hands clean, Amazon has turned to outsourcing some of their deliveries to independent companies. They provide them with all the technology to monitor their drivers, provide routes, determine how many packages must be delivered in a day, and decide on what vans to use and how the drivers must dress. Then they leave it up to the company on how to maintain their workforce. As you might imagine, with Amazon being the majority or sometimes their sole client, these companies will do anything to keep the contract to deliver these packages, even if it's at the expense of the workers. As a result, they take on the deadly Amazon mentality of optimization at all costs, without even realizing it. They've been reported to have forced their workers to skip meals, urinate in bottles, speed to make deliveries, and not wear seatbelts to get out of the truck faster.
No
This resulted in the
way!
horrific loss of an innocent life in December 2016
No
when a driver named
seatbelts?
Vladimir Gray flew down the
That's
Chicago
illegal.
roads trying to deliver all the packages in time for Christmas. Amazon Echo speakers were the hot item that year. They even sold out. However, in the rush, Vladimir hit Telesfora Escamilla, an 84-year-old grandmother who was walking at a crosswalk. He crushed her diaphragm, ribs, and skull. As she lay dying in a pool of blood, he leapt out of the van and screamed, "Oh my God." After police arrived,
Oh my
he
God,
tested
no
negative
way.
for drugs and alcohol and was later charged with reckless homicide, which he would be
Bro.
acquitted for in 2019. When the family of the deceased sued Amazon, the delivery company, Inpax, and the driver, Amazon claimed no responsibility as it technically wasn't their driver. In response to
Bro.
BuzzFeed and ProPublica reporting on this and other fatalities caused by drivers of Inpax and 2 other companies, Amazon dropped these companies, further distancing themselves from blame. As a result of losing these contracts, a total of more than 2,000 workers from these companies lost their jobs. One step Amazon took to allegedly make things safer for the delivery drivers was to install an AI surveillance system in 2021 called
Jesus.
Netrodyne. It's
What is
designed to make the
this?
drivers much safer on the road by capturing violations like texting on your phone, staying too close to cars, and not using your turn signal. In theory,
What is
this should
this?
make things safer for the employees and pedestrians alike. The problem is, it tends to punish drivers for mistakes they didn't make. Like how one driver in Los Angeles kept getting violations for not maintaining a safe distance when he was constantly being cut off, or another who was using his phone for directions. And even with the AI surveillance system, Amazon drivers are still causing deaths on the road. In November of 2024,
This is horrible. Why so mean? I can't say anything, bro. I can't change the world yet. The world is so mean to people and living beings in general. Why?
an Amazon driver hit and killed a 79-year-old woman who was crossing the street. He fled the scene and allegedly continued delivering packages. It's unclear why
Jesus.
he kept delivering packages, but one might assume it was due to the pressures of the job. While narcotics were found in the van, there's no report of him being under the influence at the time. In this case, surveillance didn't help make things safer, but
Okay, an ad is going to start. Oh my god. Don't risk your life for a job. You know, my dad did that. He didn't die, he's still here, fortunately. Because there was this warning. There's now, because of climate change, there's bad storms here. Really bad storms. And the government prohibited people go to work, okay? In those areas that there was a storm. My dad, for him, like, job is life, okay? He's like that. And he went out and he had to come back because all the roads were closed and stuff. He had even a special paper that they gave him to work while on the storm. And police was, like, checking him all the time to see if it was not lying. In the end, there was no way for him to go. And yeah, it was really bad. But because of that, the guy had to work like an extra shift. Like 16 hours, like, poor guy. But don't risk your life for a job. Jesus. I know money is something really important nowadays. But money isn't everything. But it is at the same time. It's something so hard. But please don't suffer like this. Poor soul. For me, it hurts so much seeing these people die. Because of... And, why is there a fly there? It's a big one, but okay. it's, in the end, these innocent people die because some billionaire wants to, right? Come on, is it that hard to have like a job that respects people? For example, there are some companies here that are known as like the best companies to work at. For example, the company gets good money for their sales, so they apply that to get really good conditions for their workers. Okay, they even have a park for them, even have game rooms. They have everything for them, and yeah, why don't they do that? They're even
But
richer.
perhaps that's not the ultimate goal of surveillance. Like in the warehouses, it may just be another means to track their employees to make sure that speed is always the #1 priority. Ultimately, it's not just one thing that contributes to these deaths. It's a culmination of policies, poor safety practices, and the stress-inducing environment. So, will Amazon ever be held accountable for any of this? Well, not if they have anything to say about it. On September 24th, 2017, 59-year-old Philip Lee Terry was working a shift at an Amazon warehouse in Indiana. He was told to fix a forklift. With a wrench in hand, he passed under the forks with a platform attached to it. That's when the 1,200-pound piece of equipment fell onto him. It took 2 hours before someone found a pool of blood, with him in the center of it, dead. It's unclear why with all that surveillance, he wasn't found until then. But regardless of why it took so long, OSHA Inspector John Stallone arrived the next day. He noticed that a pole that was designed to hold up the forklifts, as per safety regulations, wasn't used. Either you need to prop up the forks, or, more ideally, never pass underneath them. The hydraulics can give out, and the equipment on the forks can fall on you. Again, it's hard to speculate why Philip didn't follow regulations. But to quote one Amazon employee, it's incredibly hard to meet rate while following all safety procedures.
True, yeah.
But on top of that, it was also discovered that there was no written record of Terry having received any formal training. So he may not have known what the safety procedures in a situation like this were.
The guy didn't know,
Stallone said that safety was second to production demands for Amazon. Due to the inadequate training, OSHA fined Amazon $28,000, a small fee for the $2.5 trillion company. Stallone did want to raise the fines, but got pushback. Feeling something was off, he started recording the conversations he had with his boss. Rightly so, because eventually his boss asked him to shift the blame from Amazon to the employee and to lift the fine. This was in a recording he shared with Reveal, an independent news organization. His boss wanted to partner with Amazon to help them become a leader in safety. She went on to say that Terry was likely on drugs, even though the coroner said there was nothing but nicotine in Terry's system. There was a reason for this, according to Stallone. Amazon was looking for a place to set up their new headquarters, and the city of Indianapolis was a finalist. Stallone had a meeting with the labor commissioner who stated it would be nice to get the headquarters and asked Stallone to back off from the investigation or resign. Shortly after, Stallone's supervisors said he was going to be terminated for job performance issues, and so Stallone ended up resigning. Then he reached out to Reveal and provided the recordings. But sadly, nothing came out of the exposure. And a year later, with Stallone out of the way, Amazon signed a deal with OSHA to waive away all of the fines.
This is still happening, right?
This incident entirely on the deceased employee. And ready for the real kicker? In the end, Amazon didn't even choose Indianapolis for their headquarters.
Why?
And it wasn't the only time OSHA was steeped in corruption with Amazon. Like during the blistering summer of 2022, when 3 workers died within the span of 3 weeks in Amazon warehouses across New Jersey. Temperatures during those 3 weeks were excessive, ranging from 90 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. The first death took place on July 13th, the second day of the Amazon Prime Day
Thank you both for commenting.
During the pandemic, Amazon's 2022 Prime Day event garnered $11.9 billion, an increase of 62.8% from the previous year's revenue of $7.31 billion. So one could assume the workers at the Carteret, New Jersey fulfillment center probably had their hands full. Rafael Ronaldo Motafria had been complaining about the heat in his unconditioned workspace. Co-workers said he was pleading for fans, but he was told to work through it. Then he collapsed and passed away. Then, on July 24th, at the Robbinsville, New Jersey Amazon warehouse, Roger Boland fell off a ladder and hit his head, dying in hospital 3 days later. And on August 4th, at a delivery facility in Monroe, A man named Eric Vadinsky was hospitalized and died 4 days after, but not much more can be found about this incident. OSHA investigated the 3 deaths. They claimed that Raphael had a previous heart condition which led to a heart attack, and Amazon wasn't held responsible, again, even though heat stroke is known to cause heart attacks. Then when OSHA investigated the second incident of Roger, who fell off a ladder, it's reported that OSHA was denied access to the room where the accident occurred.
Why?
Until a few weeks later, once the heat had died down, they determined that he had died of a seizure, but the doctors noted that he had an extremely high body temperature, and he had died of a brain injury due to the fall. So it could be possible that he was affected by the heat wave somehow. But regardless, Amazon wasn't deemed responsible. For the third, not much is known because no information was released. But as you might expect, Amazon wasn't held responsible. What's more odd is that OSHA's reports are supposed to be made public after their conclusion, yet only the report for their first death was released, which is why Warehouse Life, an Amazon workers' rights group, filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act to release the other reports on August 14th of 2024. OSHA never responded, which prompted the workers' rights group to file a lawsuit in November. As of February 2025, the reports still haven't been released. Amazon went on to state they bear no responsibility for these deaths, and
of course they have responsibility, bro.
Into something they weren't. But these deaths most likely could have been avoided if they had better working conditions, with proper air conditioning. And this wasn't the only time that Amazon has forced their employees to work through these intense weather conditions at the expense of their lives, all in the name of maximizing profits. In fact, just 8 months prior, Amazon warehouse workers were told to keep working during the deadliest December tornado outbreak in U.S. history. It was December 10th, 2021, in Edwardsville, Illinois. The day was warm for this time of year. The weather was ominous. The last 3 days were filled with warnings from meteorologists, with forecast models showing severe weather. But with the holidays looming, it was peak season, as Amazon referred to it, with temp workers hired and regular employees working overtime. There was even an added incentive for the drivers. If they could deliver 200 packages that day, they would get a $25 gift card. So it wasn't uncommon for the drivers to stuff their vehicles with several hundred boxes at a time. One driver, Deontay Yancey, was out delivering packages without his coat since it was oddly warm out. But as he dropped off the packages one by one, the customers would look at him surprised. "Why are you still working?" they would ask. All he could do was shrug and say, "Because Amazon wants me to." Perhaps it had something to do with the tornado warning put out that morning. The warning was set to a moderate risk, which is actually quite high, being level 4 out of 5. Damaging gusts, large hail, and a few long-track tornadoes during the evening hours were predicted. All the while, Amazon warehouse workers and their drivers, under the watchful eye of their managers and AI surveillance, ready to catch any infraction, were still trudging.
Sorry. What brand is that? Okay, just tell me that question.
Along, trying to avoid bathroom breaks and meet their rate as time counted down on their displays. At 5:30 p.m., a tornado watch was fully in effect as supercell thunderstorms spread across Missouri, and by 7 p.m., they were making their way to the St. Louis metropolitan area, near the Edwardsville Amazon warehouses. Leslie Campbell, an Amazon worker who was off that day, used to chase tornadoes as a teenager, but this storm was unlike anything she had experienced before. It became pitch white from the rain, she explained. It had a weird feeling to it. It was around this time when sirens started to blare in nearby areas. Texts between an Amazon driver and her supervisor were obtained by Bloomberg News, revealing the frightening situation. At 7:08 p.m., the driver texted her supervisor, stating, "Radio's been going off." The supervisor responded with, "Okay, just keep driving. We can't just call people back for a warning unless Amazon tells us to do so."
Bro, no
As
way.
the winds picked up, the storm got worse, and warnings were becoming more frequent. At 7:35 p.m., a tornado touched down in St. Charles County, 48 miles from the Amazon facility. This was the first one to hit the area, and many more tornadoes would come. In fact, it ended up being one of the deadliest Decembers on record. An EF4 touched down a bit earlier at 7:07 p.m., south of the facility in Arkansas. For reference, EF5 is the highest the rating can go. This one in St. Charles was an EF3, still dangerous.
This is so depressing. I'm gonna cry.
165 miles per hour. It flattened 2 homes, leading to 1 fatality. It was around this time when the employees of the National Weather Service took shelter, and their colleagues in Kansas City took over the tornado watch. Meanwhile, 3 employees at the Amazon warehouse asked to go home to shelter, but were threatened to lose their job if they went home. Something similar happened to the driver, as revealed by her texts. At 7:40 p.m., she talked to her supervisor again. Tornado alarms are going off over here. Just keep delivering for now. We have to wait for word from Amazon. If we need to bring people back, the decision will ultimately be up to them. I will let you know if the situation
They're gonna
changes.
let people die in the
I'm talking
storm.
with them now about it. How about for my own personal safety, I'm going to head back. Having alarms going off next to me and nothing but locked buildings around me isn't sheltering in place. That's wanting to turn this van into a casket. Hour left of delivery time, and if you look at the radar, the worst of the storm is going to be right on top of me in 30 minutes. It was actual sirens. If you decide to come back, that choice is yours, but I can tell you it won't be viewed as your own safety. The safest practice is to stay exactly where you are. If you decide to return with your packages, it will be viewed as you refusing your route, which will ultimately end with you not having a job come tomorrow morning.
Okay, bro, your life is more important.
Except these sirens weren't just a warning. And what the supervisor failed to understand was that being in a vehicle is actually the worst place you can be. It can throw you around. If you find yourself in a car during a tornado, drive at 90 degrees away from the tornado's path. But ideally, try to seek shelter in a building, putting as many walls between you and the tornado. A center room, ideally in the basement, away from windows if you have a storm shelter like many homes do in this area. That's obviously the best place. But she didn't have anywhere to go. Going under nearby overpasses or bridges wasn't safe. The worry is debris from the side, not above. And they can act as tunnels, accelerating winds, so they end up being more dangerous. Lying under her car was bad too, as the car can roll on you. It's best to find lower ground if possible, then duck and cover. If there's really no other option and no low ground, stay in the car, seatbelt on, stay below the windows, and cover your head with your hands, or ideally a blanket to avoid broken glass. The supervisor kept telling her to shelter in place, even though she kept telling him there wasn't any shelter. With the storm 30 minutes away, she may have had time to go back. However, in the end, not going back to the facility actually may have saved her life. The text also revealed that strong winds had just hit the facility, tearing down one of the garage doors. The EF3 tornado luckily lifted at 8:01 p.m., and then another EF3 tornado came down at 8:27, this time about 3/4 of a mile from the Amazon facility, and it was heading right for them. Clayton Cope, a 29-year-old U.S. Navy veteran who worked at the Amazon facility, was described as the person who would always put a smile on your face. His parents were watching the news at the time, which told them of the tornado that had touched down. A red line of its predicted path sent it right through the facility. So one of them picked up the phone and called Clayton. Luckily, Amazon's ban on cell phones was temporarily lifted during the COVID pandemic. His mother explained, "We told him the storm was coming and he needed to take shelter. He said he needed to tell someone." That was the last time they ever spoke to him. In warehouse DLI-4, one of the 3 Amazon warehouses, sirens were going off, and it was chaos. Reports say that the tornado warning came about 10 minutes prior to the tornado's touchdown, but to get word across the entire warehouse, which was the length of about 3 football fields, it was a significant challenge. Plus, they were caught in the middle of a shift change, so people were in the process of arriving and leaving, including the drivers. As per their emergency action plan, they were supposed to use a megaphone. Unfortunately, it was locked in a cage and nobody had access to it. So they resorted to yelling, especially because they needed to tell people where to shelter. That was problem number 2. Illinois and the surrounding states are especially prone to tornadoes. Normally, they see an average of about 60 tornadoes a year. But in 2024, there was a record of 142 tornadoes. Yet, when Amazon driver Yamarco Hickman was asked if he had ever done a tornado drill, he said, "No, I just froze. I was pretty much kissing the concrete." None of the employees interviewed afterward ever recollected doing a tornado drill. In fact, their written emergency action plan didn't provide a location either. Driver Jada Williams described the event. "It was so many people yelling and screaming. I was trying to calm people down. I started having an asthma attack."
Bro, I know I'm not pausing the video and talking because I'm so scared. Poor people. I don't want to cry, but Jesus, this makes me emotional.
But those who did know where to shelter yelled out to go to the bathroom, which was the shelter area, but not a proper storm shelter. The third problem was that the warehouse had 2 bathrooms, one in the north side and one in the south side. Only the north side was the designated shelter area. 39 employees made their way to the north bathroom, but without clear instructions, 7 employees went to the south bathroom,
No!
including Clayton, the Navy veteran. Meanwhile, just outside the warehouse, the tornado had begun ripping electrical poles out of the ground and throwing cars in the parking lot into the air. Then, the vortex crashed into the building. The 7 in the non-sheltered bathroom were huddled together near the west wall, and it was that wall the tornado hit first. Craig Yost, one of those 7 in that bathroom, said, "I saw a flash of lights and a flicker, and I took a step to my right, and the wall fell on me."
Jesus!
The 40-foot concrete wall slammed inwards onto those 7. Craig Yost found himself crushed by the wall as the tornado took a slice out of the warehouse, tearing off the roof and shredding the rest like paper. Driver Jamarco Hickman described the fear in the sound: metal getting twisted, chaos, hearing those walls collapse, the sounds of the loud roar of the tornado when it slammed into our building, and you just don't know. Anything could fly it.
Bro, but
As it left,
why a
only the
shelter
north
is a
side of the
bathroom?
warehouse remained, where 39 employees survived. The tornado then traveled northeast 10 miles, spewing debris from the warehouse all along the way, before lifting at 8:32, 5 minutes later. At 8:35 p.m., the first call to 911 was made, and 6 minutes later, emergency services responded. Craig Yost, still pinned under the wall, could do nothing but wait. He was still very much conscious, and he remained there for hours. He thought he was going to die, but thoughts of seeing his wife and family again kept him going. He focused on his breathing as he was being crushed by the wall. As he waited, the little room he had was getting smaller and smaller. Eventually, the wall started to crush his head.
No!
He was terrified. Luckily, emergency crews got him out just after midnight, and he was airlifted to the hospital. Crew kept searching the rubble for people. Eventually, they found the 6 remaining people who had hid in the south bathroom, all of them dead.
No!
Clayton's body was found at 4:30 a.m., and his parents, already on the scene, were devastated. Aside from Clayton Cope, the 5 others who died at the Amazon warehouse were Deandra Morrow, Kevin
Come on,
Dickey,
this is so
Etheria
depressed.
Hebb, Larry Verdon, and Austin McEwen. Meanwhile, Craig's lower body had been crushed, suffering from bruises, cuts that needed stitches, and fractures. He had to undergo emergency surgery for his hip, but he recovered and felt lucky to be alive, while mourning his friends and colleagues who passed. When all was done, the central United States had a total of 66 to 71 tornadoes in the span of 2 days,
Jesus!
becoming the deadliest December tornado outbreak.
But they can't make like companies just say it's illegal to work on storms. That should be illegal. Don't you think? I think it should be illegal.
In U.S. history, with 89 deaths and $3 billion in damage. The following day, the man ultimately responsible for stress-inducing AI surveillance, unhumanitarian approach to employee safety and health, ambulance avoidance policies, and collusion with corrupt OSHA officials, Jeff Bezos, posted on Instagram about Blue Origin, his vanity space venture. Happy crew this morning in the training center,
what the
it said, with him smiling with the soon-to-be astronauts. All the while, emergency crews were still trying to find life.
This is so
under the rubble
dystopian,
as
what the
employees and
hell?
families mourn the dead. He did eventually release a statement that night, though, claiming he was heartbroken. A few months later, Dan Bruno, a first responder and engineer who was on site that night, sent a memo that the building's support columns weren't anchored to the foundation, a building code violation. Because of this, and the actions taken by Amazon to keep their employees working despite the numerous warnings, the families of the victims and the surviving employees filed lawsuits for wrongful deaths and emotional trauma. They targeted Amazon and the company that built the facility. They claimed in the lawsuits that Amazon prioritized profit over safety.
Don't
and
you tell me.
specifically mentioned the employees who were threatened to be fired if they left. In 2023, they settled with the builders, and as of 2024, the lawsuit against Amazon was still pending. OSHA did an investigation into the Amazon incident and had a so-called scathing report. pointing out the issues with the megaphone, the lack of tornado drills, and the lack of proper information in the emergency action plan. However, OSHA only suggested Amazon take action to fix these problems, and no fines were issued.
Oh,
When
come
Senator
on!
Bernie Sanders investigated the company's injury rates, he found some very disturbing facts. Released at the end of 2024, in it, he explained how Amazon discourages workers from seeking outside medical care and that many workers have been fired while on medical leave. Plus, Amazon knows of the connection between their fast rate of work and rate of injuries, yet refuses to do anything about it for fear of hurting productivity and thus company profits. Instead, Amazon's going theory is to blame the employee's frailty as the main factor responsible for injury while on the job. That's why Amazon has created a wellness program where employees are encouraged to stretch and eat right to help combat the working conditions. And while that's great and all, it fails to touch on the core of the problem. It is important to note that in recent years, Amazon has tried to improve their safety, partly by replacing their employees with a robotic workforce. On their website, they state, "Our goal is to be the safest workplace within the industries in which we operate." And
bro, you're
Jeff
the
Bezos
worst, I guess.
We are going to be
I'm gonna
Earth's
eat
best
something, I'm so
employer
hungry.
and Earth's safest place to work.
Bro,
They
no way,
specifically
that's
said
gonna
two
be the
factors:
safest place.
Recordable incident rate, basically anything that needs more than first aid, and lost time incident rate, injuries that take time away from work. Both have improved since 2021, claiming that this means their workplace is getting safer. But as we know, they often push workers to work, even if they have an injury, which would skew the data. Also, Senator Bernie Sanders' report stated that Amazon manipulates its workplace injury data to make its warehouses seem safer than they actually are, which could mean that they're covering up not just injuries, but potentially a lot of deaths. Which wouldn't be surprising, because news organizations like The Guardian or workers groups like GMB Union need to acquire 911 call logs and ambulance reports to find out what is actually going on inside these warehouses, which conveniently won't exist in many cases. And if Amazon faces lawsuits, fines, or public scrutiny, they deny and appeal it every time. When they get their way, they place the blame on the employee or third-party companies, all to wipe their hands clean. The employees could benefit from having unions, but Amazon has taken a very strong anti-union position, highlighted in one of their managers' training videos. It states, "We do not believe unions are in the best interest of our customers, our shareholders, or, most importantly, our associates." Managers are then told to listen for union words like living wage, grievance, or contract and react accordingly. In fact, in January of this year, when an Amazon warehouse in Quebec, Canada became the second in the world to ever successfully unionize, it was shut down, along with the 6 other warehouses in the province, putting about 4,500 workers out of a job. The union leader, Felix Trudeau, called for a boycott. Amazon's fatalities are clearly linked to how little regard they have for their employees. As one worker said, "We're not treated as human beings. We're not even treated as robots. We're treated as part of the data stream." So next time you find yourself reaching to open up the app with the smile from A to Z, an alternative is to try and support local businesses in person or online. Another way to cut out an unnecessary middleman like Amazon is to go to the product on Amazon and then buy directly from the company selling it, if they have an online website to order from. Unfortunately, our dystopian future has now become our dystopian present. But that doesn't mean things can't change for the better. And one of the things we can do is to try and avoid supporting the corporations that have put us here. Speaking of which, the only way to get to keep making videos is if a certain corporate overlord and their almighty algorithm sees that our viewers, like you, have hit the like button, subscribed to our channel, and most importantly, watched another video. Thanks for watching.
Bro, yeah, don't support Amazon. I don't buy anything from there because it's crazy expensive for me. Try to support small business, even though they're quite expensive, I know. Or go to alternatives that are, better people in the world, I guess. But oh my god, so many deaths. Hello, how are you? This is so depressing. So many people die. Jesus. Oh! Thank you. But yeah, thank you for sending me this. It's so depressing. Thank you.